Good evening, everyone. It's good to be able to share this time with you on a beautiful fall day. At least here in New York, it was a beautiful fall day. This week, during Dokusan, I had the good luck to talk to someone who was a total beginner. And, beginners ask really great questions. This person, wanted to know, well, uh, should I go into Zen or do Zen or not? He's sort of in the stage where he's shopping around a number of different spiritual practices. And quite naturally, he wanted to know, well, okay, if I do Zen, what do I get out of it? And of course, the textbook response is you don't get anything out of it. And but clearly that's not really all that a satisfactory response. I mean, I've been practicing nearly 35 years, and it's had a profound impact on my life. And I can't really imagine what my life would have been had I not engaged to the best of my ability in Zen practice. And yet it is true. You don't get anything out of it. But the reason isn't that, it's totally futile to do Zen practice. It's that the premise of the question is wrong. The premise of the question is that there's a you to get something. And this is, the traditional ego way of looking at things, and all practices, including Zen, make use of this ego as what's called a upaya, a skillful means. And so certainly when I went into Zen, I expected to get something out of it. I expected to get enlightenment. I expected to have amazing spiritual experiences, lots of fireworks and altered states of consciousness and so on. And at the end of that, I expected to have my mind blown and, basically have life go smoothly ever after that. That's what I kind of expected. And no one exactly told me that that's not why you do Zen practice. It doesn't really matter why you do Zen practice. As Suzuki Roshi said, to practice at the beginning, only 1% sincerity is required, and the other 99% can just be ego. What am I going to get out of it? What's in it for me? How is this going to improve my life? Me. And so any good spiritual practice, including Zen, uses this as sort of a jujitsu. And of course, the Rinzai approach to teaching very strongly makes use of this. Sit hard, sit strong, have kensho. Kensho being, another name for an enlightenment experience where you suddenly perceive the emptiness of all things. Of course, what they don't tell you is that that's really just kind of the beginning. And then you'll spend many years getting rid of kensho if you happen to have one. It's kind of like, you know, it's very icky. It's hard to get off if you have a kensho and attach to it. So as a result of having this approach to Zen, I approach sesshin, the way people who run like might approach a marathon. Yes, this time I'm going to do it. I'm going to sit really hard. I'm going to sit really long. I was much younger then. And who cares if I get any sleep? Uh, Enlightenment at all costs. And, I was constantly looking over my shoulder to see whether my zazen was improving. And what did that mean? Well, obviously, the point of zazen, I thought, was not to have any thoughts. Otherwise, why would you be letting thoughts go? Uh, as a beginner, I was counting my breath. And if you managed to get to 10 without having any thoughts, your reward was you went back to 1 and got to count all over again. And it was very hard. And for a couple of years, I couldn't get to 10 without having any thoughts. But then one session, finally, it happened. The magic happened, and I got to 10 without having one single thought. And of course, when I got to 10, I immediately had a thought. Whoa, I got to 10 without having a thought. And I was very excited, and I couldn't wait to get into Dokusan with Daido Roshi. And I thought I was going to get a big pat on the head. And instead, what I got was this look of deep pity. I said, Roshi, he wasn't a Roshi then, he was a sensei, but whatever. I got to 10 without having any thoughts. He said, that's okay, don't worry about it, just let that go. And go back to the breath. Ring, 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 and out I went. So I think we can see the problem with this approach to practice, even though as a upaya, it's very necessary. It really gets us practicing hard, gets us going deep, and so on. But of course, the problem is, as long as you're looking for something, as long as you're hoping to get something, as long as you're looking for the Christmas present of enlightenment, and even if you happen to get a package that looks a whole lot like the Christmas present of enlightenment, you're still separate from whatever it is you happen to be pursuing. And this feeling of separateness is one of the reasons many of us come into spiritual practice in the first place. Separateness, alienation from life, feeling like a observer of life, or that life is something out there that needs to be mastered. Depends which way you want to go. But anything except, oh, I am life at this moment. Doesn't have to feel like anything special. I am life at this moment. It's almost impossible to believe. Of course, believing it as an intellectual proposition doesn't really help very much. But to realize it, you have to work very, very hard. Well, not because there's something you're going to get, but because you have to make yourself really, really, really tired really, really, really good and tired. So you go down every blind alley possible, and eventually you just get so tired of all these blind alleys, all these promising little experiences that you're pursuing. You get good and tired, and all of a sudden you're just there sitting, just as you are at this moment, with a lot of thoughts, with zero thoughts, with a couple of thoughts. You're just sitting. And of course, this is the Soto approach. The Soto approach is just sit. Sawaki Roshi famously said, just sit zazen and practice the precepts. That's all. That's all is one of the most brilliant things I've read in the teachings of modern masters. That's all. That's all. That can light up your world if you understand it in your heart and mind and flesh and bones, and not just as an intellectual proposition, something like, oh, well, I'm Buddha just the way I am right now. That never helped anyone as an intellectual proposition. That has to become as clear as the colored leaves dropping off the trees at this time of year. And if it's not clear, that's okay. Just put your heart and soul into practice. I remember something that Enkyo Roshi said really affected me. So, during a session, the teachers at the session would get together. We don't do this anymore, really, but we used to get together and, well, does the session seem deep? How do you think people are doing? Are they going deep? And I said, well, yeah, people are, they're showing up for their zazen. They're doing their kitchen duty. They're doing all this. And so I think it's going pretty well. And Roshi said, yeah, it's too bad. That's all they're going to get out of it. Yes, too bad. And how wonderful, how totally wonderful and miraculous. Just sitting zazen, just washing the dishes in the kitchen, just getting up with a very groggy mind at 4:30 in the morning. That's all. That's all. But would anyone really get into this kind of thing if they didn't think there was a great big goodie waiting for them? It's what's called sometimes the second moon, the notion that there's some enlightenment to be realized beyond this world of delusion and change. There's a koan about the Dharma teacher of the founder of our school. His name was Yunyan, and he was the teacher of Dongzhan Liangzhi, who founded the Soto school in China. And it goes, one day Yunyan was sweeping out the garden, and his Dharma brother Dao Wu walked up to him and said, "Too busy." And Yun Yan said, "Well, you should know that there's someone who's not busy." Dao Wu said, "If so, there's a second moon." And Yun Yan held up his broom and said, "What moon is this?" Dao Wu then stopped. So who is the one who is not busy? Who is the one who is nobody and gets nothing out of Zen? Because they're not separate from Zen even for a moment. So how could they possibly get or obtain anything? There's no one there. But who is this no one? Who is this no one right now at this very moment? This metaphor of sweeping out the garden is sometimes used as a metaphor for zazen, sweeping the weeds out of our minds. And there's another story about a monk whose job it was to sweep the garden. And so he swept and swept and swept. And these Zen gardens, they have to look very pristine. So he worked really hard and swept and swept. And then the master came and looked and said, "Not enough." And so the monk swept and swept and swept and swept and swept and swept. And the master came by and looked and said, "Not enough." And the monk kept sweeping and sweeping and sweeping till he was really good and tired. And the master said, "Not enough." And the monk said, "Master, I've been sweeping this garden all day. It is perfect." The master walked over to a little maple tree and shook it, and a few maple leaves fell down on the smooth surface. The master said, "Now it's perfect." So we create a second moon by thinking we're supposed to get to a place of emptiness and purity. As Master Hong Chi said, though, passing through beyond location blocks the eyes. If you stay in the world of emptiness, which you think your goal is, well, there's nothing to do and no one to do it. Seeking purity, you miss the purity that is here right now in our anguished, anxious, chaotic individual lives. And yet over and over we're told this world of samsara is not a different world than the world of nirvana. Looking for nirvana somewhere else is a sure way to stay in samsara. So what should we do? Well, I think we should follow Sawaki Roshi's advice. Just sit, follow the precepts. And When it's time to give a Dharma talk, show up and give a Dharma talk. When it's time to end the Dharma talk, end the Dharma talk. Then it's time to chant the 4 vows. Chant the 4 vows. What do you get out of it? Who is it who's chanting the 4 vows? Who is it who's giving the Dharma talk? There is no second moon. The moon is shining its light right here, right now. As Dogen Zenji says, it's reflected in every drop of dew that appears on the grass on autumn mornings like this. It can be seen everywhere, but it's never separate from the differentiated grass blades. Just sit, just follow the precepts, just chant the 4 vows, and live the Dharma truth.